I am an artist. I run a business. I have employees, and I'm a mom and a wife. And I've got this person, right? I am a person. I have a huge family. I love family. I've got old friends. I've got new friends, and I'm trying to balance all of these aspects of my life. And it's kind of the reason why I decided to start this podcast and name it The Composed Artist, because I am just trying my best to find composure, to be composed, to get it together. That's what I'm trying to do here. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone in this. I know that there are people all around the world who are juggling all of these tasks, wearing all of these hats, trying to set boundaries and prioritize and be the person they want to be and be the person that their loved ones need them to be and their clients need them to be, their employer needs them to be. It's a lot to balance. Okay. It's a lot to get together and have together and keep together. Right. So that's something we're going to talk about on the podcast, juggling all of these things, finding balance. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Composed Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gaffney. I'm an artist and a live wedding painter here in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm excited to be here. You are joining me while I'm in my studio, wherever you are. I'm in my studio here in my home, and it's a small, quaint little studio. You'll see paintings that I'm working on, kind of hanging up in the background, maybe drawing on this rack back here. If you are listening in on Spotify, just to the audio of this podcast, you may hear me working. I may in the future record a couple episodes and just kind of share my thoughts and tell a story while I'm working on a painting. So you may hear some background noise, but this is it. This is where I'm going to be most of the time. Maybe we'll take this on the go, but I am just excited to add this podcast to my efforts to share the joy and the excitement of live wedding painting, encourage artists around the country and around the world uh, toward their dreams and goals of success as live wedding painters. I hope that this podcast serves as entertainment, as inspiration, just as good old fashioned storytelling, and just something that, you know, you might like to listen to. I don't know. I know I'm a podcast girl. So the podcasts that I choose to listen to are either educational, like I love to spend 30 minutes listening to somebody that I trust tell me something that I need to learn, or might, it might be a different way of seeing things. It may help me solve a problem. I love to take away something. I also love like a crime podcast. Like I love a story. I love storytelling. So I hope that this is kind of a blend of those things. A little bit about me. I have been an artist professionally, full time, for almost 10 years now, probably over 10 years, but I've been a live wedding painter for 9.5 years, if we're being very specific. I am from Baton Rouge and I live in New Orleans now with my husband and my 3 kids. I'm a mama and we are doing life here. And one of the ways that I'm able to help provide for my family is by painting live at weddings and creating portraits and commissions and fine art and selling prints and selling an online course and one-on-one coaching. For me, it is about the mission. Okay. And I have a 2-part mission. Well, I guess we can kind of simplify my mission as like bringing joy to people through my gifts and talents. That's like end all be all. That's like the main squeeze. But I do that in 2 ways mainly. I'm a live wedding painter, so I provide custom paintings for couples and families on their wedding day, live like entertainment, live art performance. Like it's very fun, very entertaining. I travel to your venue and I create a painting that you can take home and like hand down for generations to come. It is a masterpiece for your family. It's awesome. I love my job. And then I also, now that I have a couple of years of experience and now that I have this passion to share what I know, now I teach other artists how to do what I do. Okay. So I may not be the best teacher when it comes to running an art business that sells like original arts and galleries, because that's not what I'm known for. That's not what I've succeeded in. But the area that I have succeeded in so far is live wedding painting and commissioned paintings. Service-based art business. That's my jam. That's what I know really well. It's what I'm really passionate about. And it's what I feel very confident in that other artists can achieve success if they put other people's first, if they build service-based art businesses. That's what I'm passionate about. And so now I'm teaching. I have an online course specifically for live wedding painters. It is a very niche world. It's a very niche job. And like I said, I've got a lot of experience. I've been a live wedding painter for 9.5 years. I've painted at over 500 weddings, which means I've served over 500 couples. I have a ton of paintings in my portfolio, and that's just the weddings. I do commission work as well, and I have always done commission work. I'll tell you a little bit of my story in this episode. That's kind of going to be the gist of this episode is let's get to know Stephanie a little bit. So I've painted at over 500 weddings. I've been published in magazines around the country. I've painted at weddings in locations outside of the country, destination weddings. I travel all over the world. It's so much fun. I also sit right here in this chair and create beautiful paintings that I hand to my neighbor down the street that I ship to locations all over the world. I can create art here. I can create art there. I can come to your venue and create art. I can do whatever you want. That's kind of the whole vibe of commission work. It's like, what do you want? I'll paint it for you. And then you're very excited about it because it's something you're passionate about. It's just so much fun. So, with that said, I am an artist. I run a business. I have employees, and I'm a mom and a wife. And I've got this person, right? I am a person. I have a huge family. I love family. I've got old friends. I've got new friends, and I'm trying to balance all of these aspects of my life. And it's kind of the reason why I decided to start this podcast and name it The Composed Artist, because I am just trying my best to find composure, to be composed, to get it together. That's what I'm trying to do here. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone in this. I know that there are people all around the world who are juggling all of these tasks, wearing all of these hats, trying to set boundaries and prioritize and be the person they want to be and be the person that their loved ones need them to be and their clients need them to be, their employer needs them to be. It's a lot to balance. Okay. It's a lot to get together and have together and keep together. Right. So that's something we're going to talk about on the podcast, juggling all of these things, finding balance. And because I know I'm still trying to get it together, I'm not always composed. I am going to be inviting other people who are more composed in certain areas onto this podcast to have conversations. We'll call them guests, we'll call them interviews, but really, I just want to have conversations with people and hear what they have to say and learn something from them and share my own 2 cents and my own perspective. And I want to invite you in on those conversations. Like I said, I've been working as an artist for 10 years ish, and I have had many 2, 3 hour phone conversations with artists all around the country. And I've built friendships and I've just made a lot of friends. And we have these conversations all the time. And every time we're chatting, I'm like, this would be so good to share. More people need to know this. And so, part 3 of the goal for this podcast is to share some of those conversations with you. So stick around if you want to hear some of those. And if you have somebody that you admire or somebody you follow on Instagram that you'd love to ask them a question or hear their story, let me know and I'll invite them. And maybe, it can be this mutually beneficial situation where you're making requests and telling me what you want to know and listen to and hear and learn and who you want to learn from. And I'll bring them on. And this will just be a platform for that. So that's where we're at today. That's what I've got going on. That's the purpose of the podcast. But let me tell you how I got here. Let me give you a little bit of my story, right? Like I said, my name is Stephanie. My maiden name is Torah Grossa. That is the name of my business. That is my brand, Torah Grossa Fine Art. It is a long word, and a lot of people have trouble sounding it out. And some people will reach out and say, "Hey, Tori," and they've been following me for years, but they think my name is Tori, and that's fine. I say, "Hey, you, what's up?" But Torah Grossa is my maiden name. It's important to me. I'm a big family girl, and it's a rare name here in South Louisiana, and so I kind of wanted to embrace that as my brand. Even though I knew when I got married, one day I would take my husband's name, very old school like that. And, but here we are. My brand is Torah Grossa Fine Art, and I'm Stephanie Gaffney. I'm the oldest of 7 children. I come from a very large family. And I will say that being the oldest child, it plays a big role in temperament, I think. When you look at the psychology of the birth order, typically, more often than not, the oldest is going to have leadership qualities. They're going to be a little bossier. They're going to be a little bit more prone to heavy responsibility. And those are some things that I was gifted. I don't want to say it was thrust upon me or whatever, but that's a peek at my upbringing. So I guess I can attribute some of my independence, my, go get 'em ness, some of that self-starter, that I can attribute that to being the oldest. If I wasn't the oldest, maybe I would be more of a rebel and less of a I got this, I've got control and I can, I'll make it work out kind of thing. That may have affected where I am today. Not only was I the oldest of 7 kids, but we were homeschooled. So I'm perfectly normal, as you can tell. But being homeschooled, we had a really standard curriculum, but we also had whatever whatever electives we wanted to take. And for me, I was the only creative person in the family. My mom is artistically gifted as well. She just didn't really pursue it as a career like I'm trying to do. But of my siblings, I'm the only one who could draw or paint or I'm the only one who wanted to pursue that. And so I opted for different art electives growing up. And so I did all kind of stuff, and it wasn't in a classroom setting. It was just me following the instructions and doing the sculpture class or doing the pottery class or the painting or the drawing or whatever. And so I had I guess, an active role in pursuing what I wanted to do in terms of educating myself in the arts throughout my adolescence and high school and all of that. I didn't take my first figure drawing or still life painting class, like a classroom setting, until I was in college. Now let's talk about college. When it was time to decide what I was going to do for a living, of course, I am interested in the arts at the time. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be in painting classes, and I was just delighted that that was even an option to major in painting and drawing. But I was advised by those whom I trusted, which is mainly my parents, but also the advisors at the college. I was advised to do something more applicable, right? So I ended up majoring in graphic design. Now, as it was still an art major, it was still like a liberal art major. So I was able to take some drawing and painting classes, some studio arts, which were my favorite, obviously. But I had this degree that made me employable. And sure enough, as soon as I graduated, I had an opportunity to get a job at an advertising agency as a graphic designer. I learned a lot at that job. And it was at that job that I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. I was not born wanting to start a business. When I was 18, like looking at my college career and like looking beyond that, I was like, I kind of just want to be a stay-at-home mom, not because I was being lazy, not because I didn't want to work, but because I had this relationship with my mom and my family, and I thought that that was the coolest thing ever, and I wanted that for my family. Like I was thinking beyond, and I was thinking life goals, vocation goals, not just what makes the most money, or like what industry I wanted to work at. I was not career minded. But I got a degree and I was employable and I got this job and it was fun and I loved, piddling behind the computer. But when my boss recognized in me this potential, this like extroverted tendency and leadership potential and this maybe potential for like commission, like not commissions, but sales a little bit. Like I was not a salesperson, but he said, I think that she can chat her head off. And I think that it might behoove all of us to put her in a networking group. And so he did. He asked me, he said, if you want to join a networking group, then you can, if you bring clients in the door, I'll pay a commission. And I was, 21 when I graduated college and making exactly what he was paying me. I think it was like $15 an hour. And all of that was going to rent and groceries and gas and dog food. And so I was, needless to say, I was motivated by the idea of a couple extra $100 here and there. And so I joined, motivated just by that. And I joined a networking group. I was 21 years old and I walked into a room full of older, like middle-aged professionals, people who knew what they were doing, people who had families, who were confident in what they were doing in their career, who ran their own businesses. And I was a child expected to sell a service or a product or represent someone else's company. It was a lot of pressure and it was very scary, but what did I have to lose? I was like, I could use an extra $100. I have nothing in save, like I was like, yeah, let's go for it. Why not? I learned so much in the first couple of months in this networking group. It was, tell you, it was BNI. It was Business Networking International. It was an awesome opportunity for me to grow as a young adult, an opportunity for me to develop my own like people skills in the adult world. It was an opportunity for me to learn how to sell and not like sell like a car salesman, but like sell to a person a service that could improve their life. you know, what do you do? What do you need? What problems do you have? We have a solution with regard to, website development and design, logo redesign, SEO, the things that our agency did and were good at. And I really enjoyed the process of communicating with a person, making a connection, convincing them to just walk in the door so that we can, we as a team at the agency could take the reins and just kind of show them all the ways that we can help. And then I realized how simple it was, like business in general. I was not a marketing major. I did not minor in advertising or I didn't know business and I didn't educate myself in college on like how business runs in this country. But in that moment, it clicked for me. It was so simple. I was like, "Oh, this is business. You attract a client, provide the service, they agree to pay for it, you do the work, you give it to them, they pay you the rest, and then they tell their friends because they love it so much. And then their friends walk in the door and then it's a cycle. That it's that simple. And that's business for everything. That's every business. And it was and that was fun for me. It was like I, you know, leveled up in a video game. I had this new skill and this new appreciation for what we were doing. And before long, trying to think of the nicest way to say this, before long, that's all I wanted to do was be involved in the client's process. And I was started to slack. I'll take full responsibility. I started to slack in my graphic design duties. And I started to like hound my poor fellow colleagues who were in like the development department and like copywriting and the tech team. Like I was like, where are you at on this project? Where do you do? Where's my guys? That, because I was standing up for the client. And I had a hard conversation with my boss, and he said, you really just need to do the job we hired you to do. And that was, to me, that was like, but this is my job. My job is to, yeah, to me, it was like a shock that I don't want to do the job you hired me to do. Sorry. And so I said, okay, fair. And then I got back behind the computer. But yeah, that inspiration to design, to push pixels, if you will, was gone out the window. I still, I could do it. I was trained to do it. I liked the creative part of it, but it was not long before that's not what I wanted to do anymore. And that inspiration and desire to be a designer was replaced with, I could do this. Like, I want to run a business. I want to serve people. Like, I could do this. This is so easy. Like, I want to be involved with the people. It was clear as day. I never wanted a career, y'all. It was crazy. I think about that a lot. Some things have happened to me in my life that were just crystal clear. A decision that needed to be made, crystal clear. How I felt about something, if I had to like end a relationship, crystal clear. Like this moment when I no longer wanted to be a graphic designer and I no longer wanted to work for someone else, crystal clear. And I came home. I lived in an apartment at the time. I went home, quote unquote, to visit my mom. And I was like, Mom, I'm done. I'm quitting. Well, let's like backtrack maybe 2 weeks before the moment where I decided I'm done. I was frustrated because I didn't enjoy my job anymore. And every time I would visit my mom, I would fuss and complain. Oh, I hate working there. Oh, I'm so tired. I'm over it. I'm not motivated. I'm not inspired, blah, 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 blah. And she would say, just relax, go for a run, go, have a glass of wine, whatever. Just chill out and then go back to work. And, you'll have a better day tomorrow, whatever. Well, this one day I came home. Once that shift happened for me, I went back home and I was hanging out with my mom and I said, Mom, I'm going to quit. I'm done. And she said, okay, what you going to do? And I said, I'm going to paint. I'm going to be a painter. I'm going to be an artist. And she didn't laugh at me. She said, okay, good luck. How are you going to do that? What's the plan? And I didn't really have a plan other than I'm going to serve people. Like whatever they want, I'll paint for them. And she didn't make me create a business plan or anything, because to her, she just wanted us to be happy. She wanted her children to find what brought them the most joy in their career and then pursue that. And, like I said, she was a stay-at-home mom. She just wanted to nurture her children and ultimately get them to heaven, right? That's like the ultimate goal of a mother. That's my goal for my kids too, anyway. But you just make sure that they're happy and pursuing something that fulfilled them as a person, which I think is an excellent goal for a mother, to consider the child, to not set some sort of expectation that they have this career path that makes them miserable, but they just want to please you. Like I think my mom, I really appreciate my mom. Mom, if you're listening, thank you. Thank you for supporting me, even though we were both like, question mark. Yeah. So, at that time, there was something kind of serendipitous about that moment where I said, Mom, I'm done. And I have a plan. And it ends with, I'm going to serve people with custom paintings. And she, I guess, as she felt that the right answer for that was, all right, go get it, girl. And I was living alone in an apartment, and I did not have a paycheck anymore. So I did not, there was no budget for, what I'm going to spend towards rent or, bills or whatever. So when I talk to artists today, when I'm mentoring artists or one-on-one coaching or coaching in a group setting, and an artist brings to the table that they're considering quitting their job to be a full-time artist, there's a lot of things to consider. And like, do you have a family? Like, what are your bills? Who are you supporting? What kind of nest egg do you have? Like, there's a lot to consider. Well, at the time, I also had to make those considerations, but my situation was I was single and I had an apartment that I had committed to with a lease, and I had a dog, and that was it. And in my heart and in my mind, I was so the desire to create the business and the need to do this thing was so overwhelming to me that I was like, of course nothing bad's going to happen because it's going to work out. But in the and also you'll kind of get an idea that I'm just really a glass. I'm not just a glass half full kind of person. I'm a, hey, we got a glass with water. That's great. I'm just like very optimistic and what's the worst thing that could happen? I'm that kind of person. It annoys some people. I get it, but I can't help it. So I thought, worst case scenario, I don't sell enough paintings to pay rent. And then I have to break my lease and move back in with my mom. And then I'll give that a try for a month. And if we're both pulling our hair out, then I'll get a job. I'll go back into the workforce. I'll get a job doing something. I'm trained to do something, so I can fall back on that. But I don't think that that's going to happen. But I didn't have any kids at the time. I didn't have a mortgage, like that kind of thing. It was a low risk thing, but still I had no income and I didn't want to lose my apartment, and I wanted to eat and pay for gas. And so I wanted to succeed, and I would do anything that I needed to. And I did. And I worked my butt off. It's funny when you take ownership over something like your career, you want it. Like you enjoy a Monday. You love a Monday. You love to go back to work. You Even if you have a job working for somebody else, if you take ownership over your role and you love your work and your job, and you know in your heart and your gut that you're needed and that you're not replaceable, and that the job at hand, like, it gives you fulfillment, then time flies by, and you really enjoy the work that you do. And for me, every minute that I was working, I enjoyed it. Now, another thing, when you first get started in a business like art, like when you're a creative entrepreneur and you have no income, and you need to like create and sell artwork of any kind, it's not just all like 24 hours of creating art and then it sells right away. There's a lot of marketing that's involved. There's a lot of researching that's involved. There's a lot of self-educating that's involved. Investment of supplies and time, investment. Like I went back and joined that BNI group as a fine artist, like in my own category. And so I had to pay the dues that were paid previously by my employer, but now it was me, it was mine. I had ownership over my company, so I had to pay those fees. A lot goes into starting a business, and my experience was no different. And like I said, I loved every minute of it. I'm a social bug. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm an extroverted kind of gal. And so but this desire to work, this desire to plug away at the studio and keep painting new things, and actually like read books on business and financial management and whatever, that quickly took over my desire to like go out on the boat on the weekend, or like go out with some friends downtown, or all the social things that I was doing as a 22, 23-year-old person, that little socialite as I was. I started, my life changed, my priorities changed. And I mean, I'll tell you later on in this story how I am, still, I don't want to say struggling, but it is, you're always struggling to keep all those things balanced. But at the time it took over and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I'm glad that I hustled. I'm glad that I did that, because the next thing that happened after 6 months of scraping by painting pet portraits and, service, like, what do you love? I'll paint it for you. Any kind of gift giving holiday. It's Mother's Day. Does she have a dog? How about a pet portrait? Like, all of these kind of marketing strategies of service based. What can I do for you? What can I paint for you that you would love? And then, you know, in the meantime, painting things that inspired me, painting beautiful photos that I found on Pinterest, painting pictures of birds that I took out in my backyard. This was all merging paintings of birds with kind of a graphic element, because I had been in the graphic design world for so long. So I had this phase of my career where I did kind of a mashup of those two things. I did anything and everything that I could to scrape to sell paintings and scrape by. I also did a little bit of graphic design work. I did some logo rebrands. I did anything that I could to scrape by. And then within 6 months, I realized that I did not have enough eyes on my work. And, we all know the more exposure. Nowadays, we have Instagram and social media and TikTok, and that all kind of helps blow up exposure, gives you the opportunity to try at least. But back in the day, in 2015, Instagram had just come out. And it was not quite used for business promotion just quite yet. It was still very social. We were doing square grids and slapping filters on our photos. Oh man, we've come a long way. But anyway, I was using Facebook mainly to kind of get the word out, but I only had so many friends and they only had so many friends and they all only had so much money that they could spend on paintings. And so I knew I needed to get in front of more eyes. So I decided to sign up for an art festival, and it was recommended to me by someone that I had met along the way. And it was like 5 hours away, and it was an 8 day long festival. It was like $800 for the booth, which was rent. It was a huge investment. But I heard and I kind of got the sense from talking to a couple of people that the profit was, you had a good chance of making a lot of money. So I took that risk, and I spent 2 months painting and building a booth setup because I couldn't afford to buy one. So I built one out of like scrap wood and lattice work. It was wild. I drove all the way up to Shreveport, pulling a horse trailer full of paintings in my booth setup, and a chair and making it pretty, making it, whatever, and set up. And that was the most exhausting process. It was the hardest I've worked for anything up until that point in my life, to get ready for the show. And then it was so much fun as a social bug doing the art show, like having a booth as an artist at this festival was very, I guess, filling for me as an extrovert, but it was so draining because you have to sell. You have to have a smile on your face and have this kind of energy. And so it really is draining in that way. But it was one of the best experiences of my life because at the end of the festival, I had actually sold like $6,000 worth of paintings. I can't believe it. It was the most money that I had ever seen in one place. It was the most money I had ever had in my savings account all at one time. And it gave me the confidence I needed to know that I could do this, that there is a way, there are multiple ways, but that it is possible to make a living as an artist. And it kind of carried me through to the next season, which was commission season, Christmas time. The festival was in October, and then, November, people were shopping for Christmas. I was seeing ads for, all of these things to buy for Christmas. And I was like, hello, pet portraits. Hello, custom paintings. I marketed myself to Kingdom Come, and I painted until Christmas Eve. I remember painting something in the morning on Christmas Eve and delivering it at like 10 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve. I've never done that since. Like insane in the membrane, no boundaries, no consideration for like personal time. That has changed, but I remember hustling to serve as many people and sell as many paintings as I could. And I think I ended the year with like 10 grand in my account. Another milestone, massive amount of money. That was 5 figures. That was 5 figures. I had never seen that much money before in my life. And that it carried me through. It carried me through. And I've hit many milestones. And I have another episode on the podcast about certain milestones that have kind of influenced my career. But that was a big one. And when I think about my career as a whole, I'm grateful. When I think about my childhood, I'm grateful. When I think about the people I've met and the opportunities I've had and the clients that I've served, I'm grateful. When I think of the joy in my heart, when I see the joy in their faces and I read the texts all in caps with all the exclamation points, it's not about the money. It has never been about the money. I've used money as a tool, and I'll talk about that in the future on this podcast. I love to use money as a tool. I love to set goals for myself because I'm kind of goal oriented. And so like I'll just set a number and I'm like, I'm going to make that. I'm going to reach that. I'm going to surpass that. And so that's motivating to me, but it's not like I want to say I have that. It's never been about money. It is about joy. It's about serving people. It has been that way since I was like 10 years old, drawing pictures of horses for my friends and giving it to them in class. It has been about sharing what I can do. If you know about The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman, it was a book and they have like a quiz and you can figure out what your love language is. Mine is words of affirmation. And so when people say, "Oh my gosh, you're so talented. I love my painting. Thank you so much." That is life-giving to me. And it was when I was a child, like I said, it was in the beginning of my career and it has been ever since then. And now that I'm helping other artists, I'm not like giving them the keys to success to be 5 years, down the road further than I am. I'm giving them everything that I know to help them get past the hurdles that they are facing today in their career to help just kind of expedite that process. Because it took me 10 years and a lot happened in 10 years. And I'm grateful for everything that I experienced in 10 years. But would it have been nice to expedite the first 3? Yeah. Yes, it would. Are you still using cheap art supplies? Look, you don't have to tell me, but if you want to level up, you have to use better supplies. Come on, let's invest a little. I've been using Rosemary and Company for my paintbrushes for the past 5 years or so, and I have never thrown away one of these brushes. The quality is unmatched, and they're like reasonably priced. I hate to say it, but they're the best. So I love a long handled paintbrush. Okay. I love a hog hair or an ivory, which is kind of a mixed bristle hair. And Rosemary and Company, they have like so many options. So I would check them out. The website is www.rosemaryandco.com. That's Rosemary spelled Rosemary and co.com. Or you can just click the link in my show notes and it'll take you directly to my personal wish list. It's all the brushes that I use and recommend. So check them out and thank me later. Would it have been nice to have the technical knowledge about like painting with more detail and values and using better tools and mixing paint and I mean all of the elements that artists know and practice and develop? Wouldn't it have been nice for someone to tell me how to do my job better in my 3rd year of live wedding painting? Yes. Yes, I would have paid any amount of money to get better faster at the beginning of my career. And I have had many changes in my career. I have gone from a single person working 20 hours a day on my business to now married. And then I had 1, 2, 3 children. So I've experienced pregnancy. I've been painting at weddings at 9 months pregnant and then going back and painting at another wedding 4 months after having a baby. I wake up in the morning and I have mouths to feed and children to nurture and errands to run. I have a loving, wonderful, supportive relationship with my husband that I must nurture and he's a working man as well. And I'll tell you all about my husband Chris in another episode, but he is an attorney and he's got his own firm and his own company and his own goals and clients and all that. And so we have a very unique dynamic in that we support each other in the ways that we need to and we fully understand what the other person needs. And he'll say, I need it's funny, I'll actually say that I'll mention this now. We're in the month of August in 2024 right now in this very first episode of the podcast. I know I went on my ADHD brain was like, oh, remember you're on a podcast. He recently, like in June, he had this big trial coming up and he said, I need July. He said, I need July. Can you help me? And what that means to me is that he needs for the next 4 weeks. It's kind of always, it's never ending, but it kind of gives me a start and end time for this. But for the next 4 weeks, he needs to be encouraged to stay late because at 4 o'clock every day, he's like, what are y'all doing? Do y'all need me? Do you need help? Like he kind of is yearning to be there for family in the evening, but he needs me to say, nope, don't need you, miss you, love you. You need to stay at work. And then when I say, I've got a deadline, I've got a wedding, I need this week, I need August. In fact, I gave him July, if you will. So I was much more present in July. And I said, I need September because I've got a couple of big things happening in September. And so I know that he is going to encourage me to, I'll still pick up the kids and I'll still do but he's going to encourage me, hey, clock back in at 8 p.m. when they go to bed. He'll say, clock back in and then clock out at midnight. Like he's going to encourage me to put in those hours. And then he'll help me get up in the morning. He'll bring me a cup of coffee and say, get up, you need an extra hour. He'll check in with me and see and make sure I'm drinking water, like and then he'll pick up the kids if I need him to. Like he'll make time to pick up the pace, pick up the slack. And it's just a really unique situation. I'm really grateful for it because this is a really taxing job. And I'm like, really motivated to do another fun thing and work on another fun project and start a podcast and all these extra things, and he's just there for me and I'm there for him too. So I'm just really grateful for that. But family life has evolved and my business has evolved around it. If I had to pick a priority, of course I would choose my family. I tell him all the time, if it was ever a crystal clear calling from the Lord himself that we move out to the country and homeschool, because I have this experience in my life, I would say, yeah, we'll do that 100%. And I would put all of this away. And, that would be because my family comes first. But aside from the business, I'm an artist, like when you're born an artist, there's a part of you in your soul that needs to create. And that looks many different ways. That looks like different medium, photography, sculpture, watercolor, oil painting. It looks like portrait painting, abstract painting, working with people, working very much in the secret of your own studio, and then having galleries represent you, being a live wedding painter and going every weekend to parties and weddings and performing in front of hundreds of strangers. The artist path looks very different for everyone. And so if I was no longer a live wedding painter, I would still paint. I would still go out and plein air paint. I would, do more like watercolors. I would do something. I need to do something creative. And this career has allowed me to pursue my artistic development and pursue my interests in the arts. When I first started my business, I preferred to do like pet portraits or like landscape paintings. I didn't really like to paint faces. In fact, I remember thinking, I hate painting faces. This sucks. And surprise, surprise, all I do is paint faces nowadays. But my mindset has completely shifted. Faces and people are simple. Once I learned like the form and the structure, I can like look at a reference photo and I can paint them looking at a different angle because I understand the shape of the head and the angle of faces and, eye sockets and all of that. So it's always like a fun challenge for me. And how can I take this reference photo that's very stiff and make it feel like they're moving? Like that's so much fun for me. And then they're always joyful. Wedding paintings, people usually like I love joyful moments, scenery, beautiful, colorful scenery, full of the whole spectrum of color, like really good balance in a painting. I love to achieve that in my own work. Every wedding I do is a challenge. And so what I do as a live wedding painter is completely fulfilling. And if you're a live wedding painter too, and you feel very scared to go to your wedding, or you feel very nervous or it's very stressful and you feel anxiety or anxious about getting up there and doing the job, think of it this way: like you have the opportunity to use the gifts that you totally have. Like you're knowledgeable, you got this, and you're there to just entertain and delight people with the process of creating a painting. It's worst case scenario, you take it back to the studio and you touch it up, or you paint over the whole thing and make it look how you really wanted it to look. Like confidence will come with time. If you're just getting started, just keep it up. Just, be brave, be bold. Confidence will come with time. And with confidence comes like the desire to accept new challenges. Okay. Maybe you up the size of your canvas. Maybe you switch from acrylic to oil. Maybe you up your prices and now you feel like you have to provide the value that you're asking for, right? In terms of your price. This line of work, being a live wedding painter, it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing to do. And we're going to cover a lot of that in the podcast. I used to be so scared. I mean, terrified to bring oil paints to a wedding or an event that I was painting at until I realized that Gamblin has me covered with all of the mediums, the paint thinner, the varnish, the whole gambit. I love using Gamsol as an odorless paint thinner. Okay, this is what I use to wash my brushes to thin the paint. I use a big jug of that to slow the drying time. If I'm trying to finish a painting and layer and do all of that, I use Galkid. It's a very thick medium that I love to use with my oil paints. And let's say it's very dry, it's a very hot and dry environment. I love to slow the drying time with refined linseed oil. This is my medium of choice for my oil paints. And when the painting is dry and I'm ready to send it off to the client, I varnish it with Gamvar, high gloss. That's my preference. And Gamblin has you covered with your preference as well. You can visit their website, www.gamblincolors.com. That's spelled Gamblin colors.com, or you can click the link in the show notes to shop my preference for oil painting mediums. Check them out and thank me later. So yeah, and now that is what my life has looked like up until this point as an artist and a creative entrepreneur. And now that I'm teaching people, the joy, like the desire to bring joy to others through my talents. What are my talents in this regard? I like to talk. I like to make people smile, and I like to help them overcome obstacles and push past plateaus in their own business. Like when you have a critique with another artist and you say something that makes them go, I see it. I see it now. I mean, that should make you feel so good about yourself that you helped this person just by this one little thing, this one little piece of advice, this little, the perspective. Like, oh, have you thought about this? Like, what is the reference for? What did it feel like when you were there? What was the color? What was the vibe? What was you know, that to me is also very fulfilling. So teaching comes second nature. Not, and I'm not the best teacher. Again, I'm still learning how to do this live painting thing. I'm still pursuing my own personal development, my artistic development. I don't claim to know it all. I do not know it all. All I know is what I've learned in the past 10 years. And what I really want to do is just tell other people so that they can say, oh, yes, writing all this down. And then they can apply that to their businesses and succeed. I love it. And then they can provide a living for their families. There are many ways to earn an income in an art business as an artist, and live wedding painting and commissions or service-based art products. That's an excellent way to do that. And I look forward to tell you more about that in the future. So yeah, that's me. I'm sure that there's other interesting things about me that I'll share later on down the road, but I am blanking at this point. But it was fun to think about, my childhood and how I got to where I am today, and think back on my career with gratitude and also like excitement. Like when I think about that $10,000 that I earned after that first year in business, I I remember feeling like giddy. I remember feeling like I could take on the world, like I could do anything. And I felt wealthy. I felt secure. I felt secure. And that's a really good feeling when you're an artist and when you're a working entrepreneur, when you're a creative. Like the feeling of security allows you to be creative and to tap in to the potential that you have. And even if you're doing custom paintings, even if you're only doing commissions, to tap into your talents and ability and the way you see the world, that is incredibly valuable, because that means that the work that you produce is going to be very unique and desired by people. It's going to stand out among the crowd, and it's going to be consistent because you are creating from your heart. That's another reason why I love live wedding painting, because I can't copy anybody. I can't replicate anything. I am literally pouring out of me in that moment at the wedding, what I see, what I feel, how I interpret things, and then what I know about the figure and the form, and bringing it all together in a beautiful, cohesive, inspiring composition that, again, hopefully brings joy to the couple. So that wraps up the episode. Thank you again for your time. The goal for this podcast, my mission, is to just entertain and inspire working artists who are pursuing a composed life. I'm pursuing a composed life. This is the pursuit. It's like the pursuit of happiness. That's the joy. That's the mission, is to pursue happiness, like pursue a composed life. I don't think I've ever felt like completely composed, but that's the fun in it. It's the fun part is the journey. So let's walk that journey together. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.